So, me with being in business and focusing on my family, how would I do that with being a parent?
Yeah. Yeah. Parenting is, I can't think of anything in my life that causes me more gratitude than parenting. And just so I don't scare you, like it's not that way all of the time, and it might not be that way 50% of the time. All right. So don't freak out when it's not going well. But man, I'm grateful for my kids. I'm grateful that I had somebody teach me. You know how you have those moments in life where you were taught something and you don't know where you were taught it. And in this case, the instruction was to allow your life to develop and treat your life in seasons, little bite-sized pieces of life. And when you become a parent, that becomes all the more important. Treat it in 3-month checks, little chunks of time. Otherwise, if you get lost in 20 years of parenting, like you get to a point where it just can't go well. So here is my favorite insight after 3 decades of parenting. When my eldest son was about 15 years old, he came home and he announced that he and his soccer team, who were going to the state tournament, were all going to dye their hair golden. And it wasn't a question for mom and dad, it was a statement. We're going to do this. Now, if you're a father, you completely understand this. There was this anger, this angst, this righteous indignation that sort of started in my gut and started to make its way forward and upward and forward and upward. And it's that capacity of a father to place demands on their children that are overbearing. And I could feel that surge coming up from the inside of me. And as that surge rose and rose and rose and rose and rose, it got to about right here. And there was this audible voice. Here's what it said. 2 words. Stop it. And it was so perplexing, so odd, so loud. I didn't know what to do with that. And here's what I did. I left the conversation with my son and my wife, and I stepped into my office, and I closed the door, and I sat on my chair, and I reflected because I knew that there was a teachable moment that was just millimeters away if I would just shut up and listen. Fortunately, the voice continued. And here's what it said. It said, Roger, if you will choose to not overparent while your kids are in their teen years, you will save the relationship for the 60 years that you're on the planet when they become adults. I sat in that space. It was holy space. And I considered those words. And I knew exactly what I had to do. 2 significant things happened in the following moments. One is I sat down with my son and I fell in love with him and his desire for golden hair and his soccer team and the coach that thought this was a good idea. I fell in love with the curiosity of this moment, and my boy, I recollected how he had been and was such an extraordinary son. And this notion that dyeing his hair golden meant anything, it dissolved. It became mist. And within moments, it's as if that was nothing. It was nothing. It is nothing. The second thing that happened, and actually there's a third. The second thing that happened was I had to recalibrate how I thought about my relationship to my kids. In the 24, 48, 72 hours, in the first and the second and the third week afterwards, in the first and the second and the third and the fourth month afterwards, this was devastating to my soul. Because I realized how many times my parenting was nothing more than nitpicking. I mean, as if parenting is supposed to be qualified by, I have an opinion. And God, my friend, that was me. And listen, I got an opinion about everything. So if you're my kid, get ready. And I lived in that uncomfortable space. I promise you this is true, and I hope this helps you. For months I was in that discomfort of, my God, Roger, shut up. Shut up. Hold back that opinion. Don't hurt your daughter with those words. Shut up. My guess is that it was probably 6 months of that internal dialogue, getting me to stop that process of overparenting. But the goal that had been given to me on the very first day that I heard that voice was, I could save the relationship for when they are adults. And when you got 5 kids, like, do the math. You're picking up 250 years of good relationships in exchange for 6 years of just shutting up. And that was the decision that I made. This wasn't the question, but I let me embarrass myself, all right? Many months later, when I was able to kind of calibrate this whole discussion about not being somebody who overparents, not always expressing my opinion, and just shutting up, months later, I returned to that original moment with my eldest son, and I was sort of transfixed in that little block of time, that little frame. And I was recollecting what happened in that moment. And I realized something horrifying, my friends. God, this is embarrassing. I realized that my anger over golden hair was completely egotism to me. Because it had nothing to do with my son. It had everything to do with how would I appear in my community when I'm the one with the son with the golden hair showing up. And when I put that filter on my mind and on my heart, and I started to think through that frame as a parent, man, that'll heal you from a lot of stupidity. When you realize that so many times you have that impulse to parent, and you realize it's just you with one of a billion opinions, and then you discover a lot of times that's just self-protective, you just dredge the most unholy places of your soul. So, leaving our time on this particular point, I would say, if you can just live in a frame where you don't overparent your kids when they're teenagers, the multiplication of that you'll get back from that contribution to the relationship is manifold. Save space for a beautiful relationship with your kids when they're adults by not overparenting when they're teens.